morning. So I just, I don't know. I slept for a while. Got this on my mind. Got to still write. I got 2 to 3 hours to write a paper. I got to thinking. I can think of four more jobs I had. I think actually, and I thought about what was that guy's name? Started with a B. It was need some coffee. Just in case we need to dig up some more dirt on some people. Just kidding. Not really. Because there'd be a little on me too, right? Not really. Really only one. The rest of them, that's all. That's all. Like those are all assets. There's only one example that I would include something. There's just a little bit of liability. Nothing you didn't already know about. So I was thinking back to that first job at the veterinarian clinic. I gotta have some coffee. I worked at SA on 36 and Winnetka. I worked at Burger King. That was the only fast food place I ever worked at, and it was good though, because I liked that food. I think that was the only fast food. One of my very first jobs, Burger King. I worked there for a while. The manager of that place was that short little gal that ended up being the manager down in Minneapolis on what was that? In the U.S. Bank building before they closed that. That was like the last Burger King left. They might have one or two. They have one in Roseville, I think. I had this job out in Minnetonka with a guy from New Hope, Illinois. Oh, me and Dave Helm, we worked for Dave Tushnot for a day. Yeah, I had never done construction before. Not like that. See, I forget his name, but his girlfriend's name was Misty. She wasn't bad looking, but she wore a lot of makeup. And I met him because I was going to that, the same place Brandon Faulkner up University Avenue, right across from Dr. Green and who was my dentist there forever? I forget his name. I'd think of it. I was at the old original. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting stuff to remember, and see how it all ties together. How everybody's always tied together somehow. Either somebody's doing something for a reason, or they're framing you. That's the bottom line. I didn't figure that out until recently. All people, and you don't know. I have no idea because I'm so naive, and I'm Lois's grandson, and I never been in a fight in my life, really. Although it did remind me of one guy, Dave's friend. I think his name was Ryan. I think he's a firefighter in St. Paul now, and he became huge. Like he turned into a giant. Like But when I knew him, he wasn't that big. I mean, he had a growth spurt. He got mad at me because of Dave or something. Oh, but remember the gal down at University of St. Thomas that I met up at? How about that one? That I met up at Lake Place. One girl in 15 years, I broke the ethics, because the big A, Pete Medved, was always like, don't go near them or you ain't coming up snowmobiling. And so I would never go near any of the girls. And they only went up every once a month because there's less people. And then one time I was up there and there's two gals, and that was the gal who she had this apartment. She was going to college at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul. And she's the one who had the mother with the picture of Bill Cosby and it was signed by Bill Cosby as her mother. And I don't know, that was a weird one. She was on heroin or something. Because all of a sudden, yeah. But she was pretty good looking. But Dave and Ryan came over to that place one time because I think, she had that apartment, and I went to go visit, hang out with her a little bit. And she was quite a bit older than me. And like her apartment was so dirty. This is what I did because it was a decent. I mean, down there it's all expensive. In the Summit area, I think I literally I tried to clean her house. I mean, it was the dirtiest apartment I've ever been in my life. I mean, I couldn't even hardly walk in there. So what I did is I just took everything and put it in the closet. And she came back finally. I think she was at a halfway house or something. And she didn't like that too much. And then her mom called, and I had Dave, Helm, and Ryan. I forget his name. I think that was his name. One time he got mad at me and he started. That's the only guy I can ever think I can't have to modify. That's the only time I can ever remember where. And I was pretty rowdy and drunk back then, and I was. Well, I'll tell you why though. See, here's Dave. He was a snake. He was kind of a snake in the grass, right from the get go. Remember, he's the one who He ended up chasing Bunnell with a. He had to go to the workhouse. He got a felony, and I mean, he never talked about that to nobody. I don't even know how I found that out. But he had to do like almost a year, I think, just under a year. Because if they give you over a year, you got to go to prison, right? A year and a day. And so he had got mad at Jeremy Bunnell, I guess, and did something, beat Bunnell with a baseball bat or broke some stuff at his parents' house at Teresa and Ron's or something. I have no idea. But he got a felony, assault, apparently. And he had to do time. So this guy was already violent and he was already like, you want to talk about Kessler. I mean, this guy he couldn't do anything at the Bunny Ranch with $10,000 in his pocket. I'm telling you. And so, one time, they came over to that apartment, and so I was kind of friends with that Ryan, but I had started being kind of mean to Dave because you know what Dave did one time? I don't know, Dave didn't have a car, and we were at my mom's restaurant getting some food. We had been over at like Northtown or something, drinking beer remember the old bicycle club? Anybody remember that? It's an Applebee's now, I think. We were over there and we walked over to my mom's restaurant to get a pizza or something. And we were walking home, and this statute of limitations. So, and I didn't have anything to do with it. All I did was I got in the car. It was the craziest thing, one of the most bizarre experiences I've ever had in my life. We were walking behind Jay's on Sunny Road or whatever, Sunny Side by the lake towards the back, towards the old Kmart and Chuck E. Cheese. And we were, all of a sudden, Dave just goes up to this car. I'm not even kidding. Like he almost knew. And he gets in the car and turns the ignition. And it starts. And he backs the car out and he drives by and he's like, get in. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel like walking back to Coon Rapids. Sure, I'll take a ride. And I'm like, how did you do that? There's no key in the ignition. And how did you know this car was going to start? He's like, I don't know. It just walked up there. And I'm like, sure, remember them bridges? Everybody's doing something for something. They're either setting you up, they want sex, or drugs, or something, or money, or power. I have no idea. Everybody is up to something. And so we go home. What does he do? He's so stupid. And he's been to my house. Quite frankly, I think I don't know. I got it narrowed down between him, and here's the real bizarre thing. Okay? Because my mother used to be very, very strict, right? I was not allowed to have friends, especially if she thought they would smoke. Any of them ever smoked cigarette, or she thought they had anything to. I mean, if she knew they did anything with weed or alcohol, I mean, she would have killed me. I mean, she ran a tight ship. She tried with working two jobs and being single mom. I mean, I had to hide it, so I would sneak people in once in a while downstairs when she'd either go to bed or be upstairs, and she'd always come down and know anyways. But sometimes she'd let me hang out with a friend, and she knew what she knew what she was doing. I shouldn't have been hanging out with Dave, at least then. We did end up going to church later on, and he seemed like he I don't know. He was still up to stuff. He was still a shady character. Always. But the story is, so you know what this guy does? This guy is so stupid. And you're gonna know why I'm being rude when I get done with this story. You're gonna be like, "What a jerk!" So I can't remember what he was mad at me for. Probably borrowed some money or something. Or no, I know what happened. So uh, we ripped him off one time. He called him up. He's like, "Hey, you want some acid?" And James basically took like a he cut a strip like this and took like a end of a I don't know like a something, and he just made it look like something I don't know. And he got like $50 from him. And I'm like, I didn't do it. I didn't know. I'm not. You're the one that bought that. I'm not paying for whatever you did it. You bought it. You didn't have to. I didn't know nothing about it. And so, other than that, I really never did anything to him. I can't remember what, but he got this car, and it's almost like he knew where it was going to be. So he premeditated. I mean, what are the odds of getting in a car, right? And it just starting. So, you know what his whole plan was to get. We were drunk. So his plan was to drive it in to the woods right in front of my house and run home. And he lived like I don't know, few miles. So he's so stupid. He didn't even know, and he's been to my house many times. And he's driven there. And this is what really made me. I mean, this is when I really stopped liking the guy. He drives in if you're over by my old house in Coon Rapids, where Javon lived, where he would come out. Javon, did I mention him and his older brother played soccer? Javon and Bachler would come over after school all the time, and we'd wrestle and screw around and play basketball like all the time. And Nikki Pickles lived, and Nikki Pickles was I mean, she didn't like me at first. And I met her because I would go. I remember I made 5,000 pizzas, and then can't remember how I met them. I knew some guy from somewhere, and I would go over at like 2 in the morning and bring pizzas and hang out for a little while, have a beer or two. And she would not talk to me forever. And then all of a sudden, she became like obsessed. I mean, obsessed with me. Like she was like, I'm not kidding. And I was like, whoa. I didn't really like it. And it was weird. It was the first time a girl really like was like, whoa, like. But then I ended up missing her. And I saw her one time outside Unity. I was playing basketball with the Screebies. What was Amber Skeebies? The Flowers kids. What was the Flowers? Yeah, the what? I forget his name. The one who, if I wouldn't have messed with Michelle, I mean, he would. She was got all over him, and he liked her. What was his name? Oh, it's some weird. What was his name? It's Adonis. And his brother was the one who had a solid job up at the satellite, Anoka County satellite, just down from that food and fuel where my own cousin calls the goddamn cops on me. And I've never trusted her since either. Oh, Adonis, we're playing basketball, and I noticed, I had no idea. I look over, and here pulls in Nikki Pickles, because I would play basketball everywhere. We'd just smoke weed, drink beer, and go around to all the parks and play just everywhere. Gyms, that's all we. That was just that pretty much what we did. Get weed, get beer, and go play basketball. And saw, wow, a lot. And I saw her, and I remember the '80s hair. Rolanda had it. Huh? Oh, you mean that one that gave you a little play? Never. Man, I couldn't. I think Rolanda looked at me like 3 times, and she worked for my mom for like 20 years. I think she might have looked at me like 3 times, and I worked with her a lot. She wasn't having none of. She wasn't having none of Nikki Boy's play. Nope, never. But I tried. Uh so I see Nikki Pickles, and she's got this big 80 hair, and same thing. When women are done, they're done. She was so obsessed with me. I finally I left her, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Let me get your number. And she's like, nope. It's like, oh, sorry. You, I was obsessed with you, and you just blew me off. And nope, no, not interested. I'm like, okay, well, take care. It's nice seeing you. And so you said, why are you telling us all that? Well, it's just because it corroborates more of my memory of what I was doing, and it explains that. Why did I start explaining that? I'll figure it out. Oh, how did I get on there? Well, anyways, so you know what Dave does that night? His whole intention, it's like he planned it. He pre-planned it again, premeditated assault. That guy is dangerous. Seriously. You know what he did? And we were pretty good friends. And I'm serious. I might have owed him $50 too or something. Not much. And he was still hanging out with me. And we'd go drink beer, and yeah, he probably paid for stuff once in a while more than I did, but he'd still hang out with me. And he never punched me or nothing. But he drove over in Coon Rapids. Oh, because I said Nikki Pickles. Those condos over there kind of looked the same, and it was night. So basically, what he was going to do, I would have got that night because of Dave Helm. His full intentions was to drive that car he got into the front of my house in the woods, and then the cops would have showed up, and they would have been like, yeah, you're getting charged with grand theft auto, and you're drunk. Now you got a DWI too. Yeah, you're going to jail for a while. But luckily, God, an amazing God, was looking out for me. Because you know what this dumbass does? He's one block over. In fact, I even said, because we're coming up past Hamilton, past Food and Fuel, where Mike says Barry Burgoyne tried to get me a second time. Other than that was that one, and then Dave Helm's friend Ryan were the only two I can ever think of that ever got real mad at me. Well, Barry Burgoyne attacked me, and that's when Gary Wilson beat him up. And he tried to get me because we used to hang out at Colonial Estates with Amber Ash, and he tried to ambush me again. I was at the Star. In fact, I had to run off my bike. I had left my bike there, and they smashed my bike all up. I mean, that guy was crazy. I didn't even know him. Never had ever had a conversation with the guy. All I did was play sports. He was like jealous of me. Mike Say, what a devil. Mike Say was with Dawn, who worked for my mother for many, many years. Remember? And Don's mom and Don's brother. They all worked for 10, 15 years for my mom and Lori at Jay's restaurant in Spring Lake Park. And so Dave drive. We're coming up. What's that? Well, Coon Rap. Egret, not Egret, but we're coming behind up University Avenue past Vic's Auto, and we come and we go. We take a left on Egret, and then we take a right. What is that? Robinson Drive, back there behind Camp Guy Robinson, and where Miranda Anderson and Kara Anderson and Steffi Wold and all the everybody from Hamilton lives back in there mostly. We go past there, and I'm like, and he takes a left at the Food and Fuel instead of going. I'm like, where are you going? And he's just like, oh, I'm going to. He's just smiling at me like he's Jeffrey Dahmer or something. And I'm going, what are you doing? Like, this ain't the way to drop me off at my house. And he's convinced it is. And if you go over there, the houses again, like I said, that time I walked up and I didn't go up there and like rape a woman or beat her up or I didn't get shot either. And next to James' house, Cheryl's house, the World War II houses on Minnetonka in St. Louis Park, just down from Minnetonka. Oh, I worked at Perkins. I worked at the Burger King and the Perkins I worked at with James and Yoshi. Whatever happened to Yoshi? These were all sous chefs that had drug problems, and so they ended up working at Perkins. But they used to work out at like, you remember Denny? So James, who Denny, the guy owner or the coach, was it Denny Green, the coach of the Minnesota Vikings? He would order lamb chops all the time out at forget what that place is called, but Yoshi and James and a bunch of these guys I worked with worked out there with all the rich people, and they worked a whole bunch of other places, but that was just one of them that he would come in all the time and order lamb chops. That's why he had that big belly. And so I worked at that Perkins on 394 in Louisiana Avenue for a little while. Um, that was kind of a weird experience, to be honest with you. It's all connected. Everybody is trying to frame somebody to get ahead or to get somebody a felony. So what is so my house and the next one over were basically kind of almost identical the way they had set up the woods and the driveway. And he's convinced. So this prick, he's thinking he had this plan the whole time. He knew that car was there. You don't just walk up to a car, there's no key. He had talked to somebody ahead of time. And he did the same thing to Bunnell, which I saw Bunnell up one time. Remember I told you I was up at Running Aces and I had changed my name. And he's like, hey, Dahlheimer. And I'm like, that ain't my name. And I had him convinced too, because I had a big old long beard. It took him a while. I had the big long beard. And he's like, he had to think about it for a while. And finally he's like, Dahlheimer? And I'm like, what do you mean? That's not my name. And I had him thinking about it. But yeah, that's when he told me his brother, what's his name, became a cop or was going to become a cop. His mom was into interior decorating. But anyways, So he had Chase done this to Benel. So now he takes, I don't know why, I guess the whole, just because James had kind of got $50 from him one time. Tried to, you know, because I really hadn't done anything to him. And the only reason I knew him was because I would walk by his house. That's how I met him. No kidding. Because his house happened to be the shortest route to the bus stop. There was only one bus back then. It was on Coon Rapids Boulevard. So you had to walk all the way from Robinson Drive. Man, it took like an hour. I missed the bus so many times by like what I, you know, and it would run only like once every 2 hours back then, or even less at times. Oh, and so I had the shortest route figured out. I mean, I cut through people's yards. I mean, I had it down to about 25 minutes, I think. But um, so I kept walking by their house, and finally he said something to me, and I started talking. And his dad was a pastor at the old AA house on Coon Rapids Boulevard, where the Coon Rapids Alano used to be. His dad was a pastor. His dad worked at Ameriprise. I Yeah. So, anyways, so what does he do? I'm like, where you going, dude? He's like, oh, I'm going. I don't know. He drives the car into the front. He thinks it's my house. He drives the damn car in, buries it into the wood. You can't get it out. There's snow. It's wood. It's winter. You're not getting that car out with a tow truck. And the police and somebody, and they're gonna be like, who drove this here? And I'm like, not me. Yeah, right. Put your hands behind your back, son. I can't believe he did that. People did stuff to me like that all the time. I think they were just jealous of my hair. I was pretty good at sports. I'm serious. Those are the other than that ugly goon Barry Bergone, and I guarantee I'd give him a run for his money today. He's probably way bigger than me still, but he wouldn't be able to do what he did before. He wouldn't be able to do it. I just hope he'd stay away from me. I'm just saying, as to an example of my character. Other than that, there was Ryan, my whole life, of anybody ever where, and he wasn't even going to do nothing. He just kind of, he kind of got in my face. But we had went over to that girl's apartment. So there's all this time through my life where I never had any problems with anybody, and I had no problems with girls. Like if Rolanda didn't, I didn't keep bothering girls. When Nikki Pickles said nope, even though she was obsessed with me, did I keep bothering her? No. Ask her. She'd probably tell you she liked me. Her mom was right across. Her mom had an apartment. She would literally. I mean, she was like either madly in love or obsessed with me, one of the two. And so, but then all of a sudden, I ignored her, hurt her feelings, I guess. And then she's like, when I saw her a while after, and I'm like, well, you're still kind of cute. And she's like, nope, sorry, man. That's the way girls are. Remember, when we're done, we're done. And I'm like, okay. So, but he drives this car into the front of my house, or the one, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why did you just do this? And all he does is look at me and smile and get out of the car and start walking. So his fault. He thought he was in front of my house. What a jerk. He was trying. He was already a felon. He was trying to get me to be a felon. I mean, at the very least, even if the police didn't come that night, and I don't know how. I mean, the next day they'd have been like, "You stole that car." And I'd be like, "No," and then David be like, "I don't know what he's talking about," and I'd be have the grand theft auto anyways. He tried to get me to be a felon. I mean, this guy was a snake in the grass from day one. Now I don't know if he straightened out, and that's why I ended up bugging him a little bit. Just when I was bored, I would call him and kind of bug him because that really pissed me off when he did that. It wasn't such a big deal when it wasn't in front of my house, but he thought it was. Like, remember the baseball of cocaine that they had a factory there on Lake Street in that house he was living in, Mike Walker? And I'm kind of like, yeah, we're not friends anymore, dude. I know we've been like best friends, done everything every day for like the last 2 years. I'm never talking again. Yeah, that was pretty much the same thing with Dave at that point. Yeah. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. God loves me and not you because you did everything. You've been to my house 50 times. And it just happened to be you were a little drunk and you let the emotions and the excitement of trying to get me a felony get to you. And it was dark. It was late. It was 1, 2 in the morning. And you try to give me a felony. What? I mean, the friends I had, I had a couple bad friends. But the point is, this is why I never trusted anything with Dave ever after that. I mean, I never really trusted him anyways when he told me. But it was strange how Benel was one of my very first pretty good friends, right? Because we met at the health club before I mean, I hadn't even I don't even know if I'd smoked marijuana yet. And remember Ron and Teresa and his little sister? She was a cutie, way way too young, kind of like, but she was a little cutie, I bet, and uh she probably married like doctor, lawyer, accountant. I bet she might even be a doctor, lawyer, accountant because they were. Remember, the Benels were the ones my mom was like, I can't. I went to church and came home speaking in tongues or something, and my mom was like, "Oh my goodness, I failed as a mother. Why did I let you go to church with the Benels?" And Ron, they were. Remember, them little tiny like motorhomes, like the smallest mini ones. Like you don't even know how you could one person could sleep in there. They had they had three baby kids, young kids, two young boys and a young girl, and Teresa and Ron, and they parked in that old parking lot about next to the Moore Lake when the paint wasn't even dry, where Joe DiMaggio's used to be, and right across the street was the place where everybody Letterman Sports and Axman's. Everybody go get their crack pipes there. Not me. I didn't. Or all the druggies that go there and get their drug paraphernalia, I guess. But um, I always thought that was so funny that Ron and that whole family was in that tiny, that little mini Winnie or something. I mean, it's just like it's tiny. And then they'd have then Jeremy'd be in there too sometimes, and I'd go knock on them and be like, Jeremy, come on, go play basketball. I'm like, how are you all sleeping in there? Because they were waiting for their house to close on Coon Rapids, where I blew out my knee screwing around. Yeah. I took that as a pretty evil sign too. Man, that was when I messed my knee up bad. We were getting There was brand new house and I don't know, Ron and Teresa and the kids went somewhere on some retreat for the weekend. So we had the house brand new. We had the whole house to ourselves. We had a couple neighbor girls over, and we were getting pretty drunk on beer and smoking weed, and I busted my knee out there. I we were hacky sacking inside because I can't remember, it was cold out or something in those close quarters, and that was it. After that, it was all downhill. I started drink. I couldn't play basketball anymore. I mean, I literally that's where I tore my ACL, and I got mad at Benel, which I shouldn't have, but it was just I associated that to not being able to play sports anymore. I mean, it was all over after that. I can't remember. I was probably 21 because we had beer, but and I didn't talk to him. I think I only talked to him once or twice after that. I was so depressed and so sad. I could not, because that was my whole life, was playing basketball, and it was all because we were playing in these small quarters in the house. It wasn't his fault, but it's just this. It was his house, and the whole situation. My life was pretty much over at that point in terms of sports, and I couldn't believe it. But they're the ones who took me to my first like church where people were. This was a little different than a Lutheran church. They were running up and down, just hollering in tongues and that's where I got my first experience of your colorful Christianity. But the point is, so Dave had already done this to him, and then so the next time I saw Benel was 15 years later up there at I had called him a couple times. Similar situation. He did talk to me. I did talk to him a couple times when he was over he did call me back when he was visiting his parents and stuff, but we never really did anything. I'd be drunk, that 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning you start calling people. And so yeah, I did my fair share of that, and I'm not sure what I said to people, 15 years ago. But the point is, so yeah, that Dave, man, I couldn't believe he did that. It's one thing to be met, but to like purpose, like he premeditated, he must have planted that car there too. Maybe it was his car. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, with just a small turn of events, I could have been a 2-time felon. There'd been no defense at all. How do you prove it? What are you gonna call NASA and say, hey, can I get some satellite images here or what? Actually, and you know what? Oh, you want some real dirt? Yeah, I'm gonna give you some. This is like CIA dirt. He might have been actually the first one. He turned me on to ICQ. Remember ICQ? That it had that unique chat, and so we would talk on that. Oh, and you know what his moniker was? Vince Black. Mm-hmm. VINCE _Black. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk about dark. And I don't know what he was into, but he was he was not he was not into some good stuff. And okay. I don't know if that was where he the one, because I would we would sit and do IRC. That's where I ran into the gal from Mounds View who actually worked. I had no idea until after I met her. And that was the one time I messed with a married woman. That's it. Other than that, I never messed. And they were like broken up though, and they were kind of like just living together sort of type thing. They weren't like getting along, and they had a kid uh named Gage, and they lived they lived in that White House right across from Greenfield Estates, whereas the first place that I lived with Madeline and her mom, Michelle, and they're right across the way. There was a Ramsey County sheriff's deputy, because she'd come out on her deck and smoke, and I saw her uniform. Oh, there was another one. I knew a state trooper, his daughter, who from New Hope, Alano. We never kissed or nothing. She was like a super duper gymnastic, and she was tough. She was really like almost two tone for me. My preference. I mean, I'm not being rude. Like like really really I mean, I know Proverbs 31 woman says you strengthen with your arms, but I mean, she was like meaty, like one of those Olympic gymnastics. But she was really cool and nice, and she was really friendly. And she was oh, remember Kane? What about Kane? I was friends with him. In fact, he was friendly with Elizabeth for a while. I don't know, up here in Chicago, her parents were. Remember, I went with her parents to church, and her dad was the teacher at Chicago High School, and she was kind of the first alternative gal, and her mom, kind of the lowest. And we all got together with the church one couple times and went like snow shedding, sliding. She was she came for those were really good people. Her parents were those are some of the nicest people I ever met. And even though she kind of got into the marijuana, uh, they were just reminded me of. I mean, I don't know. They were just really nice people. And her brother was not so calm. They lived right on the Chisago Lake there, and I would sleep over there. Parents, I mean, they liked me enough to let me sleep over, and she would play the piano. Remember her? Well, was it Kane or who? And then who's that? Oh! What about who's that one guy? Oh, John Doran. Remember John Doran? Studio Signs. Oh, remember that? There's another job who I worked with. He had an office down, and we would go around and redo the stickers and the paint on the essays, and do this all day long, and just like get paid like $15 an hour cash 20 years ago. Me and James. Who was the guy that turned me on to him? Nobody liked him, but who was it? Kane? Forget his name. It was strange. It was like Kane or something. He was good looking. I don't know if man, you want to talk about rocks in your pocket? He might have been the most suave with every gal. I mean, any gal, old, young, any. And we were friends for quite a while. And he had like this Grand Am, and we even drove. And his mom was really good looking. She was older. What was that? Way up. What's that town? Way up north. In fact, I went up there and met with his mom was from up there, I think, or no, his dad. His mom lived out in Rogers. I don't know where he came from, but he knew everybody too. I mean, he knew everybody and all the girls. Remember, I don't know if you remember that guy. Yeah, we hung out quite a bit. He got friendly with Elizabeth for a little while, I guess. Uh, what was his name? The guy who turned me on to the job at Super America with John Doran. Nobody liked him. Nobody. What was his name? Owen. Oh yeah, Owen. He lived out in Maple Grove, and he had that gal that really liked him, but he treated her like crap and lived at her house, and he didn't even love her. Yeah. So I did that with Owen for a while, but Owen quit showing up, so I called up James, and then Owen got all mad at me because he wouldn't show up, and then me and we would go down to, like, I think if we went as far as Albert Lee one time with John Dorn too. Stayed in a hotel, just smoke weed, paint the essay, wrap the new stickers around there with a sky lift. Did that. Uh and you say, well, so what? So it's just another job I had where I didn't have any problems. Uh so John Dorn would do like custom paint, not like real specialized, but people would, I don't know, he had that big old handlebar mustache, and he had a girlfriend. Oh, he like way back in the day before anybody knew who he was, John Mayer. Way back, or one of those guys that became super famous. He would listen to that music. I can't remember which one it was, but he was a pretty cool guy. He put up with a lot of crap from us, and he had the contract with Studio Sign, so they would let us kind of pretty much do whatever we want. And he had a girlfriend that he was with for a long time. She was pretty cool too, I remember. Uh so you say, well, so where you at with in the story here? So I can't remember if it was I all I know is I remember if you look up Vince Black, David Helm, IRC, I don't know. That guy was into some really weird stuff. He would come over and use my computer and download stuff. And a couple times I looked, I'm like, what are you doing? What is that stuff? And but I didn't know anything about computers. He kind of told I mean, I barely I had learned how to type. That was about it. I mean, I could barely even do control alt delete, you know. There's no way I could do a network or anything like that. And so that was the reason why I was trying to be friends with him, because he would show me computer stuff. And he had a job out in Edina for a while. I'd go out there meet him after work on the bus. He would take the bus all the way out. He was like a IT tech back when they'd pay him like $15 an hour to answer the phone and tell people how to turn their computer on instead of talking to somebody from North Libya. But he would come over. He downloaded all. He would come over and he'd download. He'd bring CDs. So he was downloading some stuff on my computer all the time, and I have no idea what it was. But a couple times I looked, and it looked pretty weird. And so I don't know. You say, where's that hard drive? Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. After I'd seen what he was doing, I made sure that thing was destroyed. Okay. Look, that guy he was evil right from the go. And even further, when we went to church, I worked for Prairie Painters for a while with this guy. What was his name? Big, tall guy. Might have been called Dave. Dave. He had this fancy house out in Lake Minnetonka area, and we'd go out there once in a while because he would use his garage to do a little staining or varnishing or something, and that guy was up to something too. He was, I don't know, he was very suspicious. And then they had this other like paint shop. I'll just say they were very suspicious, and Dave was a dark character, even when he was going to church. I'm serious. And so, yeah, if you need anything on Dave Helm, look up Vince Black. Okay. Uh, I never talked to him on that. Well, maybe once or twice. I can't even remember. But he used that for some whatever. That was his dark. I'm like, how come you don't use that when you talk to me? And he's like, it's just my other nickname. So I don't know what he was doing, but I know there are some crazy weirdos. Mike Walker almost, whether he was trying to get me down to Honduras or he was actually going to go himself, because he never did go. After I was like, see ya. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere near the Panama Canal. I mean, I know I was kind of stupid. Oh yeah. So the guy, remember. Oh, so if you ever want to try to figure out Jacob Wetterling, uh, so the guy that I first now see, this was one of the guys that this was the one and only guy that I hung out with, and it was the first guy that I smoked marijuana with. What was his name? Chad. He worked at the old Bonanza. He lived with his uncle right there by the Waymans, right behind Matt, right almost directly behind Matt, the one who Larry and him played for that girl at Hamilton. He had the swimming pool, and we had the BMX bike track back there. This Chad, and he was really, I mean, I knew he would. This was in seventh grade, right, or even less. No, ninth grade. What grade was that? Ninth. It was the end of ninth grade. Tom had just left. Pete, I had probably just smoked my first cigarette. Pete was listening to Ozzy Osbourne. He was hanging up at the Creepy Carp arcade with the old bald guys giving little boys marijuana and Nambla and who knows what else they were doing. And he got his Ozzy tattoos and he was starting to be into some really weird music. And that's when I smoked my first cigarette. I cussed my mom when she caught us outside the deck that somebody smashed. I don't know if it was Dave, Brandon, and I'll tell you why. And I'm just saying, it has to be either Dave, Brandon, or those black people. I can't prove it. And you'd say, there's no way Brandon would do that to you ever. Well, I don't know. Not sure. And I'll tell you why. Well, those guys, Chad Miner, Jason Peterson, Greg Garbo, uh, those guys were into quite. I don't know what they were into, but they didn't let me. They were. I don't know. They were some pretty rough dudes at times. Uh, so, but to finish the story, so Chad, this guy would wear Metallica shirts, and I would never. I was a preppy kid, sports, but Tom had just left. I started getting depressed. And I met him. He was sitting behind me, and I can't even remember why, but I think he just asked me. He's like, "Hey, man," and I mean, you want to talk about Cheech and Chong or like Beavis and Butthead or like, I mean, you think I talk slow? I mean, this guy was like dropout from day one. And he's like, "Hey, dude, hey man, you want to smoke some pot?" And I'm like, "I don't know. My dad just left. I can't. I'm all depressed." And I told my mom to go cuss my mom. My brother got me to smoke a cigarette. Sure, why not? That was the same week, I'm telling you, that Jacob Butter, when I almost got kidnapped. If that wasn't a sign to stay away from drugs, kids, I don't know what is. Because you know what? I went over to that guy's house. It was end of ninth grade or something. And I remember laughing like a hyena, like a retard, at nothing in his basement. Nobody was there. And he lived with his uncle, he said. And it was the very first time. And I was so freaking high. Like I mean, I couldn't even, a half an hour. Finally, I started walking home. Remember that story where the guy pulls up in front of me in that road that leads right past the school district. It might even still be there, District 11 or whatever. And so the point is, the very first time, I mean, that was the most scariest thing. It's like when they say it rains, it pours. I mean, it was Tom left. My mom was working two jobs. And I had just hit puberty and I couldn't, so I couldn't run. I used to be really fast, I think. Just all kind of stuff. Pete had left and I had smoked a cigarette and uh I don't remember. Point is, somebody tried to kidnap me that day. Somebody associated to that marijuana. Somebody associated to Chad's uncle. I guarantee it. So if you ever want to figure out if there's any missing children, go question Chad's uncle. Whoever he is, if he's still alive, he'd be pretty old, I guess. He wasn't that old because something was tied to that marijuana in that house that day. They followed me, or they were watching somehow, some way. They were trying to get me back in one of those delivery trucks that it's got the slide up and then the lock over. I mean, you ain't getting out of that thing. Remember? He pulls up. Back then, they hadn't even developed. There's only a couple houses that whole way from Matt's house where the swimming pool was to my house, just past the Jetsons that I went to Camp YMC out in Ramsey with. Oh, there you go. Go out, see how many times. Yeah, I was a hyper kid, annoying the hell out of people like usual, always, but never in the corner eating my boogers. And I was always the best at everything at camp. Nobody could beat me at I don't care what we played, the totem pole or whatever the heck we did, swimming, rafting, everything. I was the best at everything every year, all year, every day, no matter where we went. Okay. Go, Ramsey, right out there outside of Noka, the Camp Guy Robertson. I went there for 10 years. Same thing behind Hamilton. We'd go there during the day. I can't remember. There was a couple people from Hamilton that would go. Nobody like Steffi Wold, though, or any of them. Miranda, none of them people. But so that's what I was doing as a kid. And then I did Boy Scouts with the Woods. Remember all that? Never had a problem. No fights. Never. People probably didn't like me because, I was good at everything. Wasn't bad looking. A few, some of the girls liked me. People probably got jealous, but Barry Begoin probably got jealous of me. Did you ever see Amber Ash? Oh yeah, half the kingdom. She was fine. She probably is still today. And we were like, I would go to her house all the time. Me and Wilson, and I was over at her house a lot, just me and her. Okay? Just we were friends. I knew girls like Amber Ash, okay? Barry Burgoyne he wasn't hanging around no girls like Amber Ash, okay? Now, you might say, well, she was, back then, she was really pretty. Like, she was like one of the prettiest girls there was, okay? Yeah. And, in fact, at Hamilton, I don't even know if there would have been a prettier, certainly not in our class, other than like maybe Tammy Diedrich and Kara Anderson. Amber Ash probably would have been the prettiest girl one of the prettiest girls in the whole school. Okay. And remember, she must have had a kid with Benell because all of a sudden I didn't see her since 6th grade because she went to Northdale or something. She didn't go to Coon Rapids, so I lost contact with her, and she was kind of whatever. She was going out with Gary, and then whatever. We just kind of grew apart. She stayed friends with Steffi Wold and all them, who I did see. I saw Steffi that one time with that Muslim guy at North Hennepin laying on the floor back when I took that psychology course, Publisher Parish. She was nice to me. She was friendly. She's like, how you doing? We talked. And So the point is I had a lot of good, nice looking friends, a lot of cool friends, a lot of like the most athletic friends. I was friends with Kane. I mean, that kid he probably could have dated a 50-year-old millionaire woman. I mean, he could have probably seduced her. I don't know what that kid was doing. I mean, he had like some Native American or some like Sicilian or something in him. And man, the girls just would go wild. I mean, like he could have, I'm not kidding, any girl. And he hung out with me for quite a while. So the only point I'm trying to make is if people are making allegations against me, like they're just not substantiated. They're not what people are accusing me of is not consistent with anything in my life. Nothing. It's a complete outlier of even what I did, but it's absolutely grossly exaggerated and in most cases outright lies. And I have no idea who even wrote it, to be honest with you. Point is, so yeah, if there's any missing kids from back then, or if there any need any more information, maybe I would guess that whoever that Chad's uncle knew, and Chad, his grandparents had a house not too right down from River Place Counseling Center on Ferry Street, just north of Highway 10, right off the exit. And I used to go over there, and Chad lived with his grandparents there after his uncle. So I did a couple times, and we'd smoke pot up there. And uh, he might have even inherited that place. I can't remember his last name, but if you're ever looking, if there's any unsolved mysteries of any children that went missing back when I would have been about what, in ninth grade, the same week or even like within a day or two of Jacob Wetterling going missing, I swear to God, honest to God, I'd question Chad's uncle, whoever his uncle was dealing with the marijuana in, and their associates, because somebody from there tried to kidnap me and they came close. Very close. Because I was high. It was the first time. I was scared out of my mind. I had just remember I'd hit puberty. I couldn't run anymore. Like I mean, I could run like lightning. And as when I hit puberty, I slowed down. I could not. I mean, I could still run, but I not like man. I could run so fast, man. Nobody. I mean, I was the fastest kid there was. And then remember, I started running, and it was scary because there was no houses back there, not a lot of houses, and it was dark, just at dusk. They waited right till it was dark, and I'm running. I'm scared to stop at a house because I'm thinking this guy's behind me. I mean, I got within about 20 yards of that truck, and he just kept walking straight towards me. He, there's not a house around. I think, in fact, yeah, he was going to put me in that truck. And finally, I got to a house. There was a light on, and I was convinced there was enough lights that somebody was there. And I goes around. So I went up there. And I'm yelling, screaming, "Help! Help!" They probably were either directly related to Jacob Wetterling, or there's missing kids that are directly related to Chad and his uncle. I'm not proud of that. That guy was one of the worst I never would have hung out with him. He was the only type of friend. I mean, he was really. I mean, he was a druggie from I don't know. It was not a Metallica shirt. I did not hang out with nobody like that, which is ironic. Later on, all the Brandon and all them guys that started wearing Metallica shirts, but I was never real close with anybody but Brandon. And so I'm not bad mouthing Chad. I'm just saying he was not my. I was a jock. I was a preppy. I was good looking. I had lots of girlfriends. This guy had. I mean, he was just a druggie, and he had pot. That's it. And I almost got kidnapped. And I did hang out with him a few times at his. We'd go in his garage, and I'm not saying he was a bad person. In fact, his grandparents seemed pretty. They had a nice house in Anoka. They seemed like just any other regular people. But Chad, he didn't do anything in school. I mean, that guy couldn't even do algebra. So yeah, I wasn't proud of being friends with that guy. But he was the only one. And I only told that story because of I'm telling you, if there's any missing children, there'd be your leads. Um, so you say, okay, so then you go on and you go. So I worked at yeah, and then so we stayed at that apartment, and Tom always had that bed at 36 Winnetka where he lived with Jerry Hokanen, who owned the vacuum SOS Vacuum, by down in the valley, the very first where anybody they drive from North Dakota to get a one hitter or whatever else they had there. It was the only one, only head shop they called them, right? Head shop, or maybe you had Electric Fetus or something down in Minneapolis, but that was it. And so um, just more examples of me having interactions with people where I did not harass, bother, or uh, continue to go after somebody if they asked me, like Rolanda or Nikki Pickles, and there wasn't very many. Okay, believe it or not, I used to have to beat the girls off with a baseball bat, pretty much. Okay, and no, not like that. But girls would talk to me. They would give me their numbers. I was friendly with girls. They didn't like say get away from me and like take restraining orders, okay? So again, everybody's up to something. I'm not sure exactly what, but I know I lived a fairly normal life. Yeah, I was into the pot and that was stupid. And the beer, stupid. If I could go back, I'd never do it. Wouldn't have hung around nobody. I would have I would have been reading books. I would have avoided all that. I think most people would probably say the same thing, but I really would. I regret it. But, everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. And so you say, how do you know? Oh, so a real quick one. I can't remember his name. Tom would know. I had another job, which this is a kind of an interesting story. Was it would have been Minnetonka? Yeah. I can't remember his name, but he was a nice guy. He would come down and play cards once in a while. He would play cards with me and all the guys. You know, um, Hollywood Glenn, Dudley. Dudley would play cards with everybody, but like Hollywood Glenn and a lot of those guys would only play cards with certain people. Like, uh, you know, um, you know, and they were the, kind of the cool older guys at the AA house. And so to play cards with them, I mean, that was kind of it was a gesture that they, hey, they didn't play cards with not very many other people. And so what was his name? There was a group of them, because you only need 4 people to play book euchre or cribbage or whatever. But like Mac and them, they would only play with certain guys. They're what's his name? Why can't I think of it now? The guy who knew the bookie for everybody over there in Brooklyn Park. What's his name? He just died. He lived in the same building, had a little doggy like me. Ran the cable. Gosh. Really good friends with Mac. Can't having a brain freeze. Well, anyways, it's neither here nor there, really. Point is, this was another guy that was would have been one of the cooler card players. And he got some contract for the Little League. He was in charge. They had all these semi-trailers parked outside the Little League in Minnetonka. And we had to we were in charge of standing on the end of the truck and making sure that the kids that were in the Little League and got their phone books back when they still had phone books. But the funny thing about this story is these kids are all rich, right? Or most of them. And so most of these kids did not want to do that. But what the league, what they did to make it fair, because if the kids that didn't have money, right, or in the area to extra money to play Little League, they could do these go pass out these phone books, right? And so what happened was the rich kids got together, a few of them, and they thought, well, we'll take care of this. We're gonna go have some beer and a little this, and we are gonna destroy everything in the building that has to do with these phone books, the fax machines, all the paperwork that this guy that I knew, I forget his name. He was kind of a bigger dude. He was pretty cool. He's alive. Tom would know his name. So I did that for a while one summer. But we showed up for work one day and it looked like a tornado came through there. And the police decided that that's what it was. It was just the kids came in. They didn't want to do the phone books because they were rich. They did not want to waste their time going around delivering the phone books, so they tore everything up so that they didn't have to do it for a while or something. I had that job for a while. I mean, that was a temporary thing. Yeah, I had a lot of jobs too. So remember the guy, this is where it gets interesting. So Brandon, that alternative school for the guys, remember, because I think it was because all the girls wouldn't leave Brandon alone, but it was because his parents broke up. Because Ryan Faulkner was really smart, went to St. Cloud State, dated uh, cheerleaders, Minnesota Vikings cheer. I'd go over to their house, and Ryan would be in the room with 2 or 3 Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders. And I'm like, yeah, how do you do that? What do you guys? I mean, you guys are cool. I mean, you're cool. You're okay at sports. I'm okay at sports. I'm okay looking. You're kind of a skinny guy. You ain't got no money. You don't drive a real fancy car. How do you got those Vikings cheerleaders up in your bedroom? Well, me and Bo are sitting down here going like this here, watching Saturday Night Live. I'm like, I kind of never figured that out. Like, yeah, you're cool, bro. You're Ryan Faulkner, but like, you just seem like kind of I mean, yeah, you're probably like the best, your quarterback and stuff, but I'm thinking, what do you got in your pockets, dude? Let me see them. Empty your pockets, bro. I need to see what you got on your person. I'm like, how do you get these Vikings cheerleaders? And I'm like, and he's in like high school. He's like a senior or maybe just he's only like 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. Thinking, how do you do this, bruh? I saw him one time Brandon took me up to the frat party one time in St. Cloud, and then one time I saw Ryan. Well, I used to eat with Ryan Faulkner and his mother in Ray-Ban in Coon Rapids. And then I saw Ryan up at the movie theater one time. He said hi. But they had this alternative school for all the potheads and the kind of guys that just, I guess, didn't keep going to school. And so I had to go there for some reason after ninth grade for a while. After I almost got kidnapped, I went there for a little while. But that's where I met that guy that robbed I can't remember his name right now, but he wore cowboy boots, and his girlfriend's name was Misty. I remember that. And she wore she wasn't bad looking, but she had a lot of makeup, kind of short. And she was like, she was like obsessed. Like she was like a junkyard dog, and he would cheat on her all the time too. But she'd always be right there with him. She'd always take him back. And he's the one who stole the keys from me and went into the veterinarian's office and stole all the change, and they really thought it was me. Yeah, and he did that. And after that, After that, I didn't. And hey, what can I say? You know, uh, we met a couple. Oh, actually, you know what? That kid, I can't remember his name. So Pete had this friend down in Minneapolis, not too far from Milda's Cafe. And we would go down there, and that was bad news. I'm not even going to talk about it. Bad news. Like evil, sick, nasty. And I had no idea. Pete, it was my brother. He was living there. And then there was all of a sudden like this male stripper guy that lived there. And I should have known better than that place. And my brother went to jail, but we hung out. We'd still go there to get weed. And that guy that I met, Misty's boyfriend that robbed, we were hanging around a little bit. He was another kind of a bad, shady guy like Chad, but he wasn't stupid though. He was a thief though. And I didn't like him, but I'd met him at that school where Brandon went to school at that alternative place and never graduated, I don't think. But you say, what are you saying this for? Oh, so we worked at Burger King on Louisiana. Me and that Misty's boyfriend, actually, we got a job together there. And we met these two, man, talk about nice people. And they lived in a really nice house. I think it was somewhere over in Maple Grove. And I always felt bad about this. Which I might even still have the ring. Uh, so this guy, we were working at Burger King, the short gal that ended up in Minneapolis before they closed that Burger King up. There was two girls that worked there, and the one I liked was a blonde, and I mean, you want to talk about like a swan. I mean, her mom, she just hadn't fully developed, but I could, and I mean, she had a little acne, but I mean, she had this body like, oh, that's right, kind of like Georgia. Never did touch her. Kid, we went out a couple times, and her parents were so nice, and I think they had to be Christians, but they let me take her. I can't remember, how did we do that? Oh yeah, she had a car. She came and even got us, and she took us to meet her parents. And there was this humongous house, really nice, rich, super. And she was working at this Burger King here. I'm thinking, don't make sense. You're all the way over in Maple Grove, and I'm thinking you are gorgeous. There's no reason you. What are you doing here? But she gave me a chance. I screwed that up. She was trying to give me a chance. I can't even remember her name. And she had this friend that worked there too. And she liked that guy, Misty's boyfriend. I can't was it started with a B maybe? I can't remember his name. And he'd wear cowboy boots. Back then, nobody. I mean, he was like the only kid ever in 100 years that wore cowboy boots and maybe even a cowboy hat. But she gave him her class ring, and they actually called me about it and asked me because he took off on her, and that so a promise ring. So I don't know if he had sex with her or what, but she gave him his promise ring, and I wasn't friends with him no more. And she called me. Her and this girl called me trying to look for, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't not. He didn't. I don't know how to get a hold of him. So then I had lost some time went by, and at this guy's house, like a crap you not. So when this guy left, I was over at that guy's house, that Pete's friend, getting some marijuana one day, and I literally in a plant right by the door. So apparently, what had happened is he he felt bad that he had that ring and he didn't know how to get a hold of them girls. And they had already called me and saying, and I'm living in Coon Rapids, and I'd go down there to get weed. And I'm like, I don't even talk to that guy. I don't know how to get a hold of him. Don't have his number. He doesn't have a pager. I have no way, no how. I have no idea about your ring. And then they never talked to me again. I think they thought I had something to do with it. And I might even still have it. And so then I think what happened is I went out to get some weed and I looked down and here's that ring. So this guy had come to get some weed or something and set it there, probably so I would see it. Because I knew, I mean, I had seen it. I'm like, because I was like, why did what did you do with her? You guys are like 15 years old, and she gave you her class ring. You got that girl Misty. We went out. We went. They came. We went out with them like twice. Went to a movie or something. But man, that was a nice girl. I bet you she really made something of herself big time. She was a straight laced gal. There's no way she probably ever did weed. Maybe later, but not then. No way. Man, I screwed that one up too. I forgot about her. Never touched her. Well, I mean, I would have liked to kiss her. Never didn't advance done did anything with her. You could ask her. Normal guy, gentleman. But I liked her, man, and I'll bet you she and her mom was fine, hot, and so she just hadn't fully developed. She was kind of a swan, I guess, at that point because she hadn't completely blossomed. But I'll bet you she's a bomb. I mean, she's a bombshell. Um, and so this guy, uh, so he must have come to get some weed, and he put that, and I noticed that. I just happened to look down, and I'm like, that's the class ring. So I grab it, and I didn't have their number anymore, and I had no way to get a hold of them. So I put it in my house, and I had never talked to those people again. And I might even still, it might be in some box that my mom, I might even have it. I know I didn't pawn it. It wasn't, I mean, it's a class ring. It wouldn't have been worth that much. I might even have it. But I had no way. I didn't, because I had stopped working, lost contact. They weren't working at Burger King. I think they went to Maple Grove. Yeah. Well, that was another one. I forgot all about her. Man, and I was pretty messed up. I was starting to get kind of messed up into the weed. And I was starting to probably have some, Tom had left. My mom's not around much. I was started hanging around a couple shady guys. And that girl and I could tell like she was trying. I mean, she was giving me a chance, man. I screwed that one up. I mean, not in a bad way. I was into the weed too much, and she wasn't having that. So she went out with me a couple times, and then she just realized I wasn't ready to. And uh, but she. I mean, it was one of those where I had to ask her a couple times to go out, and I had to convince her. But once I did, you could tell she was like trying. She liked me a little bit, but she was a really good kid. Really, probably one of those Bryce gals with the clarinet. And she knew I was kind of starting to be a roughneck. And so she's just like, she put it on me to kind of straighten out. And I never did. And then I just stopped talking to her. And, one of those gals you feel like you don't even feel worthy to call after you realize like weed is more important than going out with her. And you're like, you don't even feel worthy. And you're like, you can't even call her anymore because you just feel like such a loser. And so, yeah, there was that one. I probably could have married her if I would have started going to AA or something, or NA and quit smoking weed back then. Because she wouldn't. I think I might even tried to kiss her, but she was kind of like, no, I don't do that unless I'm married. I'm like, okay, let's get married. Um, Yeah, so just another one where I was a gentleman. Didn't push myself on her. I really liked her. I wanted to kiss her. Didn't force myself or need a restraining order. Uh, I mean, go listen to all my videos. Yeah. Oh, I remember one. I don't know where we. You know what? There was two other ones like those girls from Burger King, but I had nothing to do with this one. Uh, James and me. I don't know where did we meet those girls. Maybe New Hope. I don't know. Same thing. We went met their parents. So we were just starting to get. That was one of the meanest things I allowed to happen. You're like, God, tell us, what did you do? Well, so these, I can't remember, where did we meet them? Probably had to be New Hope. But these were good girls. No, it couldn't have been. It would have had to been. But they would have been like one of those, they were really, no, because they didn't do any weed, because that's why we pulled in that essay just down from the Rehoboth Church that we, on Brooklyn Center at the essay on 610. We went and picked them up, and these were such good girls. And we were just starting to, we were running around drinking, smoking weed, and playing pool. And he was, he was a pool shark. And so we were looking for girls that were, maybe going to give us a kiss or something. And we quickly realized that this was not going to happen. And James was like, we stopped at that. I can't believe it. I'm going to tell this story though, because those were really nice girls, and I felt really bad. And their parents called me. I hope they got their jackets back. I don't. I allowed it to happen. So we James had a nice. He had a black Ford Show. It was pretty nice. Had a fin on the back, and he had a nice radio system. And he was a pretty good looking, for an Asian guy, little guy. He was a pretty good looking guy. Pool shark. And and he was smart too. He was really smart in school, man. He could do math like crazy. But he was always smoking too much weed and playing pool. Where did we meet those girls? Those were the race girls with the clarinet. There was two of them. And God, I can't believe they even got in the car. They even went out with us. We went over and picked them up at their parents' house. And their parents used loved me. I guess it was my baby face, my hair. But all parents, I mean, like they just like I would make parents comfortable. They love me. Like they would pretty much just like, here, take my kids. Oh, I babysitted. Oh, did I do anything weird with any? I babysitted one time my neighbor's kids. I used to be a babysitter one time, right there in Coon Rapids, right next the immediate where the same right next door. See this again. This is where everybody is setting everybody up. I know it. So remember, so the guy who's a star football player, his mom is a salesman at Jerry's Floor Store right there in Spring Lake Park for 20 years. She's like the top sales. She knows everybody. She's a drinker, goes to the bar, one of the cool gals at the bar. And her son is like a star running back or something. I don't know if he ever went to college, but he was on freshman all the way through on the football team, and he was huge and strong. He'd be in the weight room. We had a basketball hoop. I hated playing basketball because he just pushed me around. But he always wanted to play because he could always beat me. But before they moved in, there was this couple. Which, come to think of it, I think I applied for a job one time with a guy who had a contract mowing the lawn and doing the snow with the UF Holland right there in Coon Rapids. I think that might have been him, but I was so young I didn't realize it at the time. I went over. He didn't hire me, but he asked me, "Do you smoke weed?" For some reason that was a common question back, when you're 15, 16, 17. Do you smoke weed, son? Oh no, of course not, sir. But I was a babysitter. Can you believe that? Little Nicky boy. They trusted me with their baby. Yeah, and they'd go out on Friday night for 2, 3 hours and they'd pay me $7 an hour or something. And I'd sit there and watch TV and feed the baby and hold the baby and watch the other kid. You ever do anything weird? Nope, never. You didn't touch any children or think of any weird stuff with kids? Never. Nope. They probably had a camera in there too, secret CIA camera. You might want to check that out. They were probably trying to see if I was a weirdo. Now that I think of it, no, they were all right. But why he didn't hire me? Probably because I didn't even recognize him at the time. I don't know if it was him, but thinking about it, it could have been. Anyways, the point is, I had met these girls. Where did we meet them? Because they were too good to have met them because they didn't. That was the whole reason we pulled in SA, and James was. I mean, we quickly realized that these were clarinet girls with braces. They were not going to give you a kiss. And we were just starting to get, and so they went inside to use the bathroom, and James is like, he starts driving off with their jackets, and it's freezing cold out. And I'm like, dude. He's like, no, I don't want to. These girls, I'm not. I'm not into them, and they're not. I'm going. I don't want to drive them back out to Maple Grove or something. And I'm like, dude, you can't do this. You give them their jackets. And the parents called. I felt so horrible. That was one of the meanest things I just was James did it. I just was just in the car. And they called me and I gave him James' number and he was working out at the Embers that I used to meet Bloody Mary, because she lived in Plymouth. Was it a Denny's or an Embers? Embers. He was the manager at the Embers. And I hope they got their coats, but I felt so bad about that. But they were too good for me at that time. They were too well, and James was like, I mean, they were so far out of his league. He was he was uncomfortable. These were like perfect girls. Like, I mean, you have the best girls you could ever go. I mean, like, why I let that guy drive off? I should have like taken the car and taken control of the car. But he didn't. He's like, I don't want to be around these girls anymore. This was weird. I think he just he would get uncomfortable though, because small little Asian dude. He won't admit it, but he got uncomfortable around girls, and he didn't. I think he realized that it was way out of his league, and he wasn't going to get no kiss. And I don't know why he did that, but he drove off. Where did I meet those girls though? Oh, I felt so horrible. The parents called me they're like, do you mind? Thanks for leaving our girls. At least you left them inside without the news. I'm like, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. And I gave him the number. I said, "This is where he has them. They were in his car. He works at Embers up in Plymouth, and I think they got their jackets." But I was so sad after that because these girls were just like the girl from Burger King. Where did I meet them? Oh, they were nice girls. Didn't force yourself or do anything. No, but I screwed that. Let that one get screwed up too, man. Like those girls were almost too good for me. Yeah, they were because I was started getting into the marijuana, and they still hung out with me, and the parents still loved me. I mean, not after that, but all parents, man, they loved me. They'd invite me over for dinner. All the girls wanted to introduce me to their parents. Does that look like a guy that would get would not leave a girl alone or restraining orders? Hell no. Where did I meet those? It couldn't have been New Hope, Alano. They were way too good. I met them somewhere. I should have never brought them around James. Should have kept them all for myself and not let him do that. But I was on marijuana, probably maybe even a beer or two. So I remember that. But see, it shows I'm willing to show you some of the things I'm not proud of that aren't horrible. I mean, it's bad. It's mean. It was a little mean. I couldn't really stop it. He drove off. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? I suppose I could have been like, just grab their jackets and be like, hey, take me back and leave me with the girls. But I just, so I'm willing to show some of which it's not like robbing a bank or assaulting somebody. I mean, that's like one of the worst things I can think of that ever happened. Let's see. Oh, so you say, why do you know? So, so what happened? So Brandon, I don't know what happened. Me and Brandon were playing tennis in ninth grade. We were really good, and I was friends with him after that. But he was mad at me for a really, really long time. I can't remember. We were up playing tennis. I think we were in the same gym class or something at night. Was it night? Because you had to walk up to the senior high tennis courts, and I don't know why, but I was picking on him that day. Well, I mean, I don't know. I was giving him a hard time about something, and I think I had him crying. I don't know why. I don't know why he was crying, but I was having a bad day or something, and I was being mean to my best friend, and I had him crying, and oh, he was mad. Oh, he got mad. I'm pretty sure he got a few other people mad at me, and we didn't talk for a long time. I don't know how long, quite a while, but we still started doing stuff. Just me and him a little bit. He would come over. He would come over and sell weed out of my mom's basement. All the guys like Schneider would come over, and I can't remember. A lot of people would come over. He'd sell like 20 sacks, and he did that quite a few times. He'd bring like a quarter pound over or something, and he'd sell a few bags of weed. He had a pager, before anybody else had a pager. And so the one of the weekends, Brandon. So I don't know if he did this. I don't know. I'm just saying. I report. You decide. Because he got pretty funny after this. He never talked to me after this. And he had been coming over quite a bit. And my mom, we had a state of the art stereo sound system from Best Buy, brand new, probably like $500 back then. I mean, yeah, it was like equalizer. I mean, everything you can think of. And the reason I tell this story again is because my mother, still to this day, I think she thinks I had something to do with it. And I swear to God I didn't. That was when they broke in and took her ring that my father Mark gave to her wedding ring. Probably not even worth that much money, a few $100, right? If that. And I remember because I was gonna go up snowmobiling, and I called up Brandon and I wanted him to go with because we had went a couple times up to Lake Place, up to Grand Rapids. Uh, and a couple times Dave even I was surprised. Dave had some pretty nice snowmobiles, but he would not let Brandon take even a halfway decent Polaris. He always made him take that old junker, and Brandon hated it because it didn't run very good. It was tough to start, and it just was old. It wasn't really safe. It was like driving a. And so Tom would let Brandon, and Tom didn't let nobody drive his snowmobile. He used it only for going up to Canada with the Big A and Dennis Medved and all those the big honchos. They would go fly. They would drive up and then drive into Canada for like 50 miles and go ice fishing. Tom didn't let nobody use his Polaris. No, not even me. I wasn't allowed to touch that thing. But he let Brandon use it one time because his broke down. So he was good to Brandon. We went up to Lake Place with Brandon quite a few times. And I remember I tried to get Brandon to go up. And I kept bugging him, like, come on, come on. And then he started asking me, he's like, where's your mom? And I'm thinking, well, you're my best friend. I'll tell you. You come over and sell weed in my basement. We hang out. I know I made you cry the one time, but I had a ferret one time. I hung out at his house all the time. I'm at his mom's house. Uh, and he kept asking me. He asked me over and over. I'm like, well, Brandon, will you just go out? Come on up with me. Go with me. I got a car. I'll drive. You can use Tom's sled. He's like, no, I don't want to. And I probably kept trying to get him, like, why, dude? And he just didn't want to. And I'm like, well, I'm going by myself then. I'm gonna drive. It's 3-4 hour drive, right? And I'm like, I don't want to go by myself, so I'm trying to get Brandon to go. And I only got a couple other really close friends, and they don't snowmobile anyways. And I'm like, and I remember vividly him repeatedly saying to me, where's your mom? And I'm like, well, I just got done trying to ask you to go snowmobiling like 20 times. And you said no to your best friend, or one of them. Well, it was probably more out of, I don't know. Not best friends like Peterson and them, but just me and him. We were friends. We did a lot of stuff together. Went to my mom's restaurant, got food all the time. We played hockey for a couple of years together. We did a lot of stuff, just me and him. Remember, he drove my car on Forest, which is kind of strange. He worked at Candia Autos. We would meet Rochelle Pust up at the McDonald's. She'd drive all the way up from Coon Rapids to sit with Brandon for 5 minutes on his lunch break while he was working at Candy, Ohio. Oh, there's another one I tried to get with. She would never give me no play. Man, I had a crush on her. And she lived in the same apartments that when that time when I had to play private investigator to figure out where Michelle and them were living, right next to the Faith Lutheran Church. She lived in those apartments where Dooley, Kim Dooley, and what's his name? His dad died, I think. But man, that kid got big too. Like Scott Clark, and he was one of those that, like, over the summer, I mean, he turned into a UFC guy. Like, I mean, he was no bigger than me, and then he was just like, mm. And I was like, whoa. He had a pretty good looking sister too, even, I think. But Rochelle Pust, I would go over there after school all the time because she would live right there. I'm always trying to get a kiss. She would be friends with me. In fact, and I saw her later at this Child Protective Services place right at the Grand Slam building across from the old Target, where Dusty and his dad used to have the snowmobile contract. Or one of them. They used to plow that. Michelle told me that her and Dusty, Bruce Leroy Brown, get out of town. They used to plow that there back in the day, that with in the winter, and along with some other accounts. But Rochelle actually was involved in a case at the very same time Madeline was with her kid. And so she talked, we went to a couple of the parenting classes together. And what did she tell me back then? She's like, oh, Brandon asked me out. And I said no. And I don't know if she got offended. I don't know. I think she was finally ready to give me a little play. And of course, Nikki Boy's the little innocent old. I'm like, I tried for like 5 years to get a kiss from you, Michelle. And then we're here, and this child protection thing. And I'm like, and she's telling me, Brian, what it was like what was it, Halloween or something? It was some holiday. And she's like, yeah, Brandon and I hadn't talked to Brandon for years. And she's like, yeah, Brandon just texted me and he wants me to go out on a date. And I told him no. And I'm thinking, looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's probably the green light. Like, hey, she's not going out with him. Why? This might be a good time to probably say, hey, can I get your number? And so I don't know if she got offended, but she never came back. She went. That was the second time she said that to me, and then I guess maybe she's like, you dummy. I tell you, I'm not even going out with Brandon. And she would drive all the way up, and we'd sit in McDonald's with her while Brandon was on. And then that time that Brandon got his first careless driving or something, because we were doing Matthew, he was off the desk job and he was chasing us. We were just having a little fun on the lunch break. Not like a cop stopping Leslie on the interstate, shutting the whole thing down. But we were just out on the lake doing some donuts, and they ruined our day, and Brandon was really pissed after that because that was his first ticket. And he was driving my car. It was kind of like a Bunnell thing, I think. Because back then, careless driving was pretty serious. Just right under a DWI, still is, it can be. And so, anyways, point is, I asked him. We're pretty good friends, and I'm like, okay, I'll tell you why. I don't know why I asked you 50 times to go snowmobiling, you won't go snowmobiling with me. You're gonna make me drive all alone. And I said I'd pay for everything. You don't, but you want to know where my mom is? I'm like, okay, I'm naive Nicky boy. She's at work. Oh, really? How late is she at work, Nick? Oh, I don't know. 11? Oh, what's she doing tomorrow? I don't know. I think she has to go to the restaurant. Oh, Are you sure? Tell me again where she is tonight? She's at work, Brandon. Oh, till when? You said 11 or 12 or so? Yeah. And tomorrow she's gonna be at Jay's? Yeah, and you're going up to 4 hours north to Grand Rapids to go snowmobiling by yourself, right? Yeah. I come home that weekend and our whole back door is smashed in and my mom is devastated. And she thinks I had something to do with it because I've been gone all weekend. And I had probably just a few months earlier told her, swore at her. She caught me smoking a cigarette with Pete. I was starting to smoke a little marijuana. And she even mentioned it a few years back. She asked me, "Did you have anything to do with that? Because that really hurt me when they took my wedding ring." I said, "No, Mama. I swear." I said, "I asked Brandon to go snowmobiling, and he asked me where you were over and over, and he was one of my best friends. I told him. I'm not saying he did it. It could have been those black guys, that, but I don't think so. And it could have been Dave maybe, but Dave, I wasn't even talking to him. He had no idea where I don't even know if I wasn't even friends with Dave, but at that time yet. So Dave is out. It was either Brandon or the black kids or somebody that came over to buying pot, but Brandon was the only one that knew my schedule, and he asked me over and over. And so they took they took all the TVs, everything, all the electronics, and they broke in my mom's bedroom. She had a lock on it. They busted the lock, and they went in there, and they took all my mom's jewelry, and they took her. She was really sad. She's like, even though she would have never got back with my dad and Leslie, trust me, she never wanted at the Downs to never get back with Mark ever. No way. She was done. You're a freak. You were crazy back then, and you're still crazy. And my mom, but she was really hurt, and that's the reason I tell this story on the record, because mom thought I had something to do with that. I was up snowmobiling by myself all weekend, and I had tried to get Brandon to go. So other than Brandon, the only other people, like the idea that those black people, yeah, they're the only ones that could possibly be. But there was thick woods then. You couldn't even. It's not like now. You couldn't even see through there. There's no way they would have had a view. Had to be Brandon. And he pretty much never talked to me after that. I don't know if he felt bad, or I don't know if Peterson or Miner or Garbo or one of them talked him into it. Probably. Pretty sad. Yeah, we're kind of not friends anymore, right, Brandon? I mean, like, I'm a pothead, so I might call you every once in a while and get some weed. And I'm pretty sure I know you broke in my mom's house and stole her wedding ring, and she thinks I did it. But I need some marijuana, so can you get me some marijuana? And that was the only thing we ever did. I only saw him a few times after that. I would call him, and I'd say, can you give me $20 worth of weed? And he'd get it. We never did anything after that ever. Kurt Anderson even went up to Lake Place once or twice fishing. That's a weird story. Kurt was friends with that one guy who apparently was a computer programmer. I didn't know he was that smart. What was his name? Can't think of it. Kurt was such a jerk, though. He was really a jerk. I saw those guys playing basketball up by Faith Lutheran, and and I asked for some weed, and Kurt let him sell me some weed with. They basically what they I know they did. They took like a one of those black magic markers and painted the weed. I don't know if they were kind of potheads and they decided that was the only way they could get high anymore is to and they ended up stealing it from me. I thought, oh, you sure were a nice friend, weren't you, Kurt Anderson? Like we were playing basketball. I saw them playing, and I went and I'm like, hey, can you get me a 20 sack? And they're like, yeah. And the guy left and came back, and like we're playing basketball, so I set the bag of weed on the ground, and I turned around to get the. It was the only time somebody ever stole anything from me too. Well, like that. Other than that one guy in my house, I guess, in Brandon. There was Screebies. What was his name? Screeby, and he was good friends with Dave Helm too. A lot of shady characters, I guess. There. I turn around to get the basketball, and Kurt wouldn't even. I'd never trust Kurt, and as after that, I'm like, yeah, that's why I never talk to you. You're a jerk. He wouldn't even get. He wouldn't even get my bag. There was like 3 or 4 of his guys. Schultz was there or somebody. I don't think it was him because he was always pretty nice to me. But Kurt wouldn't. Kurt didn't. I'm like, come on, Kurt. Will you get my bag of weed for me? One of these guys put it in their pocket. Come on, you're Kurt Anderson. And he didn't. He just looked at me. He's like, whatever, dude. And I'm like, yeah, have a nice life, man. I'm never talking to you again either. There's the only time with stuff like that, other than Screeby's second sister's boyfriend when he slept at my house that one time and decided to put my coat on and start putting everything in his pockets, and my mom came in and said, take that off or I'm going to slap the snot out of you. And he still got away with some baseball cards and stuff. Just some more stories that corroborate my life, and nothing to be proud of there, but I'm telling the truth. And you can see more examples with girls where I didn't push myself or refuse to leave them alone or required a restraining order or suspicious activity up at Home Depot or whatever. Okay? Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a sad one. I still think my mom today thinks I probably had something to do with it. Swear to God, no, I didn't. And I was pretty surprised Brandon did that. I don't know. Who else could have it been? Why would he ask me like that? But I was such a naive, innocent kid back then. You know, I had a hard time wanting to believe it was him, but it couldn't have been anybody else. I wasn't really. Nobody knew I was gone. Nobody knew. Nobody asked me my schedule or my mom's schedule. What a jerk. So yeah. That's all the stories I got for now. Just some more jobs. Yeah, Perkins. Super America on 36 Winnetka. I had a lot of temp jobs, temp agencies where I worked in a warehouse for a few days. Got bored really quick. So I worked a lot here and there, a lot of jobs. It wasn't like I was just sitting around living off my parents, thinking entitled little spoiled brat, only child. Like, oh, but you owe me something. No, I mean I was working. I had friends, and obviously I got mixed up. I got messed up with some bad people there, and that marijuana kids. Hey, that should have been a sign, huh? But see, no, there was no my dad. No, there was no father figure around anymore. Tom was gone, and that's where I would say, if you can, I understand why they say, hey, for the kids' sake, even if you just got to be friends, stay living together so the kids can be normal and feel that they have that support system. I would say, don't be selfish and go stay at your mom's house and look at Playboys and worship the remote control. Worry about the kid that you can win into their life, and they're dependent emotionally, and their life is going to probably start to fall apart. It's not an excuse, but it's a reason. Excuse me. So just some more stories, like, so if Dave ever says it, I mean, so even then I'm not going to tell you what happened, but Dave was up to some shady stuff, even with that Prairie Painters guy, guaranteed. Okay. Uh, yeah, we went to church. His parents seemed nice. His sister became a lawyer, I guess. Married some guy, lives up in Elk River. Real nice. In fact, I had a crush on her. And Dave did not like that. Oh, I liked her. Oh, he wouldn't let me near her. Oh, he wouldn't let me talk to her at all. And she stayed in the frat house too. She was friends with that gal who took off after I didn't go play flag football with her engineer brother that had went to school there and was in Bloomington, took off and got offended after I got amberitis and got offended and left. A lot of guys got amberitis. Ask Pete Peterson about that. Huh? Oh, and all the sisters probably gave him amberitis too. Hundreds of guys, I'm sure. But point is that, yeah, okay, Dave, I got to go to church, but I'm not going to tell you what happened. But Dave, there was a couple incidences that were really creepy with that Dave from Prairie Painters. Okay, that guy was bad news. I don't care. And he was big and tall, and he gave off a bad vibe. I don't know if he knew somebody I knew from somewhere or something, but he did not. He did not have my best interest in mind. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I will not explain any further. But if Dave ever says anything, I wouldn't trust that guy. Anything you could throw, anything that guy says, I wouldn't trust that guy with nothing. I wouldn't believe a word he said. He's a felon. He beat Benell or something over $50 too. Baseball bat, broke windows at some crazy crap. Enough he got a felony when he was like 18. Had to do almost a year in the workhouse. Ran that car and tried to give me a felony. And then he was up to some shady business with Dave. And I'll leave it. I don't trust that guy. And I used to I used to get drunk way back in the day and call him up and just bug him because of the crap he did to me. So if that guy ever said anything or claimed anything, I'd go look up Vince Black and I'd tell Dave to go take a hike. Yeah, we don't believe a word you say, Dave. So I guess Dave has like 10 kids now. No, he's got like 5 kids, one named Sissy or something. He's married to a gal named Molly. Apparently, so remember Molly worked with Jeff or Jeff's brother. Jeff, their well, his brother. They worked out at the Ruby Tuesdays at the Mall of America when this is back in the heyday. They made pretty good money, good tips. Then Molly had this super duper crush on, was it Jeff or I can't remember his name. Jeff was a brother, I think, married to an Asian gal. They both went to the Maranatha frat house church type with Bruce. They have a website called Spirit Formed or something. But what happened is Jeff, and that's not his name. Jeff is the brother. There was 2 brothers. They look quite alike, and a lot of times I don't even know if the brother so Molly really, I don't know. She was all over. She was obsessed with the guy, and he was a little bit older. He was in his 30s. I don't even know if he went to the University of Minnesota, but his brother did, and he would hang out around the frat house, play foosball, ping pong, and we'd play foosball, ping pong. I went there quite a few times. Remember, they had a church office down towards by Channel 5 for a while. Was down there. That's where I got amberitis. I even went on campus one time with the assistant pastor for the Youth for Christ, which I felt really uncomfortable because I was never smart enough. But he invited me to go hang out and see what they were doing, and I thought, okay. And his story actually is what gives me a little hope, actually. You say, well, why is that, Nick? So this guy was kind of similar to me. He was getting up there. He was even going bald. He was assistant pastor or something for the youth part for Bruce at Maranatha Church there at the University of Minnesota. And these are really smart kids. I mean, some of these guys, Pete Peterson sending rockets and super duper engineer, something electrical, crazy smart, nutty smart, right? So I already kind of feel kind of out of place, but David, I had been working at Prairie Painters for a little bit, but I got uncomfortable real fast and quit there. I did not like that Dave. I don't know. He was up to some shady stuff. I don't know what he was doing. I'll just leave it at that. I have some stuff I could talk about, but I'm not going to. And unless I have to. And so I think what happened is, well, there's two stories. So I forget. I think his name was John. And I went on to the. Well, let me get rid of. Let me forget. Let me give you the bad news first. I like to end on good news. Okay. So I think, like I said, Dave was bad as Kessler. That guy could not get. I don't think. I got him a girlfriend. I think I got a girl to touch him one time. I'm not sure. I was pretty drunk. He might have touched her, but other than that, I don't think he ever touched anybody but his sister or something, or his mom. I'm just kidding. He makes me mad, yo. He tried to give me a felony, and I still hung out with him after that because I needed a job and I was a painter, the $1 million best painters. And I was pretty drunk, so I didn't really care, and I didn't get a felony, but I still always knew he did that. And he knew he did that, so he knew I didn't really trust him that much. And then, after you do something like that, the relationship is kind of ruined. It's pretty limited, as you can imagine. It's a convenience relationship. Like, what can you do for me? After you do that, I'm like, I don't trust you, don't care. Oh, you got a job? Okay, well, I'll kind of hang out until I feel like I'm about ready to be kidnapped again or something. I'll probably hang out a little bit as long as it feels safe. That kind of thing. And I think what happened was it Jeff? I think he actually felt sorry because she's a little heavy set, but she's cute. She was a cute gal. I don't know if she went to the university or not, but they had that IHOP International House of Prayer 20 is still there, I think, down in Kansas City. 20. So that's how he got down to Kansas City because he had a crush on Molly. And I think what happened is Jeff felt so bad for Dave. I think he finally just broke it off with Molly so Dave could have her. I mean, he was upset. Dave was just madly in love with her, and he kept like, oh, every day for like 2 years. Hey, if you ever break up with Molly, can I go out with her? Hey, if is there any way I can go out with Molly every day? I guess. And she's a little heavy set, but nice looking girl. And so he went down to, she took off, Jeff broke up with her, and his brother was really smart, went to the university, married a Asian gal that probably engineer, scientist. And so I don't know if it's Jeff or one of them, the brothers, broke up with Molly. Molly gets him, this is a theme here. People get offended and they take off. So she goes down to Kansas City to the International House of Prayer. And then Dave ends up graduating with a degree in religious studies. Four-year degree from the University of Minnesota, $60,000 in debt for a degree in religious studies. And Dave was not stupid either, obviously. And he, make a long story short, marries Molly down there. He has his own painting or something. Flips houses, I don't know. has a bunch of kids, and he's married to Molly. But this other one's a way better story. John, who I would sit because we across from Channel 5 News, with Dave Dahl and Leah McLean. Oh, man. Leah McLean. Boy, was Dave Dahl. I mean, that Leah McLean. Come on now. We're talking brace girl with the clarinet in the box. Leah McLean. Yeah. Minnehaha Academy. Uh, so there's a building right across the street from there. They for a while they got out of the house because they got bigger, more congregation, Bruce and them. So we'd go down there on Saturday nights. That's where the whole Saturday night Sabbath thing started. Started worship, going to church on Saturday nights. And I will give this much to Dave, that he seemed to try to be a friend, and he seemed to be a pretty decent Christian, but hey, he did that stuff to me, and I'm telling you, that shady guy he worked for, bad news. Whether he it must have been something, he knows me from somewhere, because I'm telling you, nobody's doing nothing for nothing. Everybody's trying to frame somebody or get something of power or get rid of somebody so somebody they know or their family can step in and take over. Period. I'm just a naive little Nicky boy. I never knew people were that deceiving until I see all this. John, I think, was his name. He was an older guy. Gives me hope for me. He was assistant pastor, went to the University of Minnesota, and we would talk about how we don't have a wife, and we'd talk about Bible verse. And he was one of the most people I can ever remember saying, he's like, yeah, man, I know. I'm like, I went to school, I graduated with a degree. I'm a pastor. I have not met anybody. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't really do anything wrong. I'm getting old. I have not met my wife. I don't know. I'm starting to lose hope. And he's saying, and I'm like, wow. And so we related on that level. Well, except I was a lot younger, so probably didn't even mention that to him. But it gives me hope now, because he probably would have been my age. Well, a little younger, probably a couple years. But at least once, he invited me during like the middle of the day, twice a week or something. He would do a Youth for Christ, and kids, really smart, really nice, perfect kids, never touch a drug or drink or anything in their entire life. Perfect little kids going to the University of Minnesota. And here I am, like Mr. Loser Boy, and he's inviting me to go hang out and watch what he's doing as a pastor with these kids for an hour or half hour, an hour in the middle of the day between their classes. I did that a couple times. I even went to Kaufman Union and played video games or something with Dave one time. And I remember they were doing this speed dating, and I'm like, what's speed dating? I'm like, I don't even go to school here, don't have a job, and I probably might even still smoke pot, and I'm like a loser and shouldn't even be in here, and you want me to go do tell you about my life and speed date with these girls here? Yeah, not doing that, thanks. Get the next guy. I'm just here because Dave said we could play pool here for free or something, and we go to church once in a while. But have fun with your speed dating, because I got nothing to say that's going to get any girl around here. And I guess speed dating, it was like they ask you like 20 questions or 10 questions in like 2 minutes to answer, and then they bring the guy. I don't know what it was. They match you up with somebody in the room. And I'm like, yeah, there's probably nobody. If you ask me those questions, I have to either lie or however I answer them. There's not a girl within about 500 yards of here that's going to date me. So, yeah, you might want to find somebody else. I just go to church with Dave here. But then, you never know. Then that girl got all offended. But nobody liked Dave. So I think that's what happened. They felt sorry. But, anyways, this John, come to find out, I don't know how I found out. I think I saw him somewhere later, a couple years later. And he was married. And I was like, whoa, what happened? It's like an Asian gal or something. He's like, yeah, God finally blessed me. I met her here at the church. I mean, I can't believe it. I was starting to think I was never going to get married. I'm so happy. I got a family. I'm married now. And I'm like, wow. Because, I mean, even a guy like that was serving God and doing the Youth for Christ thing with the kids at this college, and he's like getting older, and he's doing assistant pastor thing with Bruce, and it finally worked out for him. He finally met a gal that gave him a go. And so, hey, there's even a tiny smidge of hope that, hey, if we keep in here, no matter what our past is, I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on, but this carcass of flesh, I can't tell you. All I know is what's going on right around in between my four walls. Okay? I don't know what's going on over there at the neighbors or anywhere. Can't tell you 100% exactly sure. Maybe I got some ideas, but hey, I don't have X-ray vision, and I don't push myself on people. I don't really know my neighbors. Okay, and I don't have security clearance to know who did that to the dog or who exactly that guy over there is, how all this other weird stuff started happening, or if they're still there after me, or they backed off and realized I wasn't their goat and they went and found a different goat. I have no idea, but we are in this flesh and it does not get easier. And I guarantee your only hope is Jesus Christ and the blood of Jesus, because each and every day, I don't know about you, but I was a priest for about 18 months from 40 to 41 and a half. Remember, after I got a little nervous after they brought that SWAT team in. I was pretty good, bro. I mean, yeah. But look, I'm getting old and I'm still in the flesh. I'm in this carcass of flesh that's getting old. But it still likes to eat. It still likes to be the flesh. And the only thing I can tell you is, hey, God forgive me. Jesus help me, please. Forgive me of my sins. Forgive me of any impure thoughts or anything that I'm doing wrong that is not acceptable in your kingdom, Father God. If Kirk Cameron will tell you, hey, you ever stole anything? A pack of gum? Yeah. You ever looked at a woman with in lust? Says the Bible says, you committed adultery right there in your heart. Oh yeah, I've done that. Oh well, then the Bible says you're a sinner. Remember Kirk Cameron, the he would come on the commercials. Have you ever stolen? Well, the Bible says then you need Jesus. Yeah, we need Jesus, man, because we can't save ourselves. Nope. Maybe if you're married and she lets you touch her every Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter, and if you're really, really nice, she gives you a treat once in a while. Other than that, you're like, I mean, maybe if you're married, it helps. Yeah, I mean, it probably helps a lot, right? You get to touch your wife once in a while. You probably the flesh probably ain't so bad. But hey, remember, I'm not married. I'm getting older, and there's probably millions of guys out there and gals. So you're gonna sin eventually, whether it's 18 months or whenever it is. I don't know how much willpower you got, But it looks to me like this only gets tougher. Just saying. And I'm pretty much sure at this point, the only thing I can do is declare the blood of Jesus over my life and my thoughts and because there's nothing new under the sun. We're not talking Jeffrey Dahmer or anything, but or any like hey, you won't leave people alone. No, go reach my video. I'm just saying, look about like even look seeing a woman on TV. Hey, Leah McLean, but she's married. She's got a couple daughters, I guess. They're pretty cute. I don't know how old they are. Probably in their 20s, 30s, married. Who knows? Twin daughters, I think. Dave Dahl had twin daughters. They might be 18, 19, 20 now, 30s. Married already again. Dave Dahl had a skin. See, Dave Dahl, they fixed old Dave Dahl up, though. He got it early. Me, they won't. See, they won't. I'm not Dave Dahl, so they won't. They won't fix my thing. Other than Jesus Christ, I don't know what because I can't say it myself. I don't know. Maybe you could. I thought I could for a while when I turned 40. I thought it was willpower. I'll just I'll just be Superman. I won't look at any women. I'll just ignore it. Hey, you don't need that, right? You don't need a wife. I don't know. The Bible says you shall leave your mother and father and cleave to your spouse and become one flesh. Yeah, it's okay to be a Klingon to your spouse, but you got to find them first. So, or she's got to say okay, right? But hey, look, every day, hey, Jesus, if there's anything I've done, if there's any thoughts I've had, impure thoughts, I'm sorry, Jesus. Please forgive me. I plead the blood of Jesus over those. If I've sinned or done anything in the flesh or thought about something impure, please forgive me, Father God. I need your help because I can't do it on my own. My willpower will not do it, no matter what. I don't know. It used to. I don't know if somehow I don't know if they snuck some kryptonite underneath the ground or something. Uh, but look, as you get older and you start aging out, you realize, hey, you tried a couple times, you may not get. You have to start to face the reality that you've got to live the rest of this life. Half the kingdom, you have to understand that you don't know for sure. If she don't ever say she want to give it a go, you're on your own. And you have to be open, just like you have to prepare for everything. And if it happens, well, then all great. Thank you, Jesus. What a blessing. He that finds a wife finds a good thing. But hey, it takes a lot of different things than just this, right? And so my point is, if you ain't got a wife and you're a man, maybe even if you're a woman, you're probably going to struggle a little bit here and there. I don't care how good of a Christian, how perfect you are, you're in this bag of carcass flesh, and it likes to eat, and you get old. Now that doesn't mean I did any of that stuff. This is separate because I just explained to you another 100 things where you could go ask all these people if I was a weirdo or push myself on anybody or refuse to not leave them alone. You could go find enough. Never did I ever do that. Okay. And if they say I did, they're either lying, making it up, or they're trying to frame me like Dave or like Brandon breaking in my house or like that other guy putting a jacket on and walking out with all my stuff or the guy at the Burger King. The list goes on and on of what people did to me. And I didn't really I mean, I guess I was okay at sports, not enough to go D1 or anything, or I probably could have, maybe if honestly, if Tom would have stuck around with my dad and I wouldn't have been over at Bunnell's screwing off drinking beer, if I'd have had a dad around, he wouldn't have allowed that. You'd have been home, boy. You wouldn't have been up at 10 o'clock at night with no parents home, drinking beer and smoking pot, playing hacky sack. I mean, what do you need, a lobotomy? Get your tail back home, boy, and you know nothing happened. You're gonna be home by dark, or I'm taking all you're going on ground. That's what they should have done, And if spare the rod, spare the child. And if you ain't home, you're probably gonna get a licking, but it's gotta be from your dad. Can't do that no more either. Can't even fillet a fish on Facebook. Forget disciplining your kids, or you're gonna have a child protection case. Go ask any of these thousands of stories I've told. If you still believe that crap, well, I'm just saying on the side note of there's hope for John at Maranatha. There's hope for anybody, even me. And if you lose the hope, then you've got nothing. But realize, don't beat yourself up too much, because hey, I'm even Superman here. Okay, I'm pretty much Superman. Except even I struggle. It's tough as you get older and you start. It's one thing to be younger and realize, hey, in the future, it's easy to hold out with the idea that, hey, I mean, if you're in a courtship or something, hey, you see the end. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, hey, I get my wife there at the end of this. Hey, I can. But if you ain't got that hope, it's easier to get off into sin and get discouraged and struggle and start sinning, whether it's in thought or action or premarital sex, whatever, pornography. It's all sin. God said, God did. He said it doesn't matter if it's homosexuality, theft, dishonesty. I mean, it's pretty serious. So he did. He did. He clumped in homosexuality with covetousness or theft or murders. All shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So, boy, if he's putting that all, lumping it all together, saying, I don't really care, I don't want you sitting around saying, oh, this one's worse than the other, man, we better be on our knees declaring, asking, pleading the blood of Jesus over our life. With all the devils running around doing that to a dog, I mean, and then we're in the flesh, so sometimes we're going to struggle, right? And you're like, then you go in this circle and you're like, dang. And all these people hate you that much to do that kind of stuff to you, all because you're what? You're into sports and you're a good looking kid and had a lot of opportunities to. I mean, there were probably 10, I mean, spectacular gals that if I'd have had a father around, he'd have been like, hey, boy, you're going to sit still or I'm going to get the duct tape. You see that snack bar girl? Hey, look at me, boy. Do I need to take you out back behind the shed? Settle down. And here's what you're gonna say. Yeah, this is how you're gonna act, boy. You're gonna go up to that gal there, you're gonna behave real good. Or I'm gonna whoop you. You're gonna be real nice to her. And you're gonna say, hey, and you're gonna talk to her. I'm joking, but man, I had some, I mean, and I had a lot of really other nice friends, girls. Lots. I had lots of girls I talked to that said, "No, wait, I'm not interested in you kissing me," and I didn't get no sexual harassment case. And if they did, they're lying because it didn't. You look, weigh the evidence. There's hundreds of girls that would say I didn't do nothing to them. to deserve anything that's happened to me. But hey, if that John guy, I think that was his name, hey, it gives me hope. And the flesh is tough, and it seems to get tougher and tougher as you realize you have to start to possibly realize that you may end up alone. And the idea of what Paul said, hey, well then you don't have to worry because you have to spend your time focused. Yeah, that's usually a married person saying that. Easy for you to say. Yeah, let me deal with it. Well, then you did bad boy. Oh, you just have more problems. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Let me deal with those. I'll decide. I've been alone long enough. And you're like, well, then you can focus on the things of God more. And I'm like, no, not me. You want to, you can. I'd rather spend my days trying to make my wife happy. So, anyways, some pretty good memories, or at least some, and then some stories to corroborate more my stories. It is what it is. It's nothing to be obviously nothing to be proud of, but it's my life. And most of the time I was running around playing basketball, drinking beer, and smoking pot. And lifting weights and running and being healthy mostly, except for the little marijuana and beer. I'm telling you, I would have played college athletics somewhere. If my dad would have been around, probably Division 1 in something, golf or something. Yeah, I mean, I say that confidently. Now, was I gonna ever be Langer? And no, not in NHL, no. But I guarantee if I would have had the discipline and the family unit structure there, and my dad would have done what Gordy did with my dad, and my dad would have learned some of the things that he should have done and passed that along to me so that I didn't make those mistakes, I absolutely probably would have got a golf scholarship somewhere. Division 1, University of Minnesota. Easy. No question. Or maybe even basketball. Or I was pretty good at basketball. I just wasn't tall enough. Couldn't jump. White man can't. Tennis. Could have been anything. And yeah, there's 1,000,000,000 stories like that. But I'm just saying. Uh, the family unit broke down. And my mom's working 2 jobs, trying to make sure I got decent clothes and we got a decent place and a decent car to drive, and she did the best she could. And I did not steal her wedding ring. And I had nothing to do with Brandon breaking in our house. And I tried, remember? So if Madeline ever wonders, I held her as a baby right when she came home from the hospital for a few months. I lived at Greenfield Estates. But her mom was starting to let my cousins over. Remember, my cousins and Brandon and them are coming over, sleeping in the bedroom where Madeline's her crib is supposed to be her room. I'm at Home Depot, and I come home from work, and these people have been doing methamphetamine all night long, and they're in the bedroom, and my daughters and Michelle's doing the same thing. So I'm thinking, well, is there another guy around here again, like over in Robin Hood behind Cook Arena? Remember, I played thousands of games at Cook Arena, Sand Creek, baseball, Fogarty Arena, outdoor soccer, everything. I was constantly. See, I played too many sports, is what I did. Dad, if I would have had a dad, he would have kind of got me focused a little better. But it's like I couldn't trust Michelle. Only person ever that spit on me one time. She was over at this person's house on the second floor, and I was trying to get her to come home. Around that time, she was with all those cocaine crack gangster Crips or whatever out in Osseo, which is strange because Sonny Holland and Gabrielle and what was the other girls? The first girl, they lived out there for a while because I think Sonia did some mortgage or some underwriting or something for a title company or something out there for a while. They went to Osseo High School or something. Yeah, it was around that time that Michelle was hanging out with Anika and them, and I was trying to find her, and she came up to the window and spit on me. She missed. The only time anybody ever tried. She was so cruel to me, and she'd have you believe that I ruined her credit and I did all this, and she wants me to be her scapegoat again. Yeah, if it wasn't me, it would have been Adonis, guaranteed. Which no problem. I'm not just saying because well, color of his skin, but I'm just saying he was not a very good guy. So just more stories of people that went after me for I don't know why. I guess this is kind of the story of my life. They just wanted me to be their scapegoat. And I did a few things, yeah, along the way, the DUIs and stuff. Got in a car and drove. Yeah. But most of this shit, this is all crap. Anyways, I'm gonna get off here, come go get ready. I'll come back, do a Bible reading, and I got some work to do for real today. I got 2 3 hours. I gotta get paper written so I can graduate. Rodney is gonna graduate. Stop. No, hopefully we don't count our chickens before our eggs hatch, but um, we're gonna put the work in and try because we've been working a long time. And if it's ever gonna work out like John, we're gonna find somebody to love us and have a Christian, godly marriage, or at least God. We're gonna try, right? No matter who it is. Uh, Black, brown, purple, red, white. We gotta get to work and stop telling so many stories. But it's hard. You just keep thinking of stuff that where you just can't believe people would do this stuff to you. You just don't feel like they deserve it just because you're maybe an only child, maybe a little bit more of a snotty attitude sometimes, I suppose. But like I'm the only one that's snotty. Look at Big Don. He's about the snootiest guy there ever was, and he became president. So, anyways, I'll see y'all later. I'll be back after a little bit here to do the morning Bible reading, and it's going to be short, quick, and sweet. And then I'm getting to work. I'll see y'all later.